type of guy to beat you if you're righteous with me. You the type to do or die childish to me. Cause how to really fight that hole in the streets? How to really fight fast, calling to me. I said bring 'em in, wait 'em out. When we swinging in, bring the ceiling down. How to really fight that hole in the streets? How to really fight, let the spiders out.
Okay, now we need to talk about this. We seriously need to talk about this issue. Now, before I get started with this, since I'm probably the only one with this feeling, I want to clarify that this is not an attack nor hate towards Kenshin Studios. This is only criticism. And of course, it's criticism that you do not have to agree with, but please, do not take this too seriously. Well, at least we are fortunate enough that Kudajira isn't here, because if that was the case, I would be totally dead. Right, anyways, so the first thing that could be mentioned is, well, this one is mostly nitpick, although I feel like me and the rest kinda agree with it, and it mostly has to do with the animation. Now, I feel like we should have mentioned it the first time we talked about Kudajira, and it's basically the animator of episode 1, 2, and 3. The animator for those episodes was none other than Sean, or Queen Craftables. I hope I did not mess that up. But yeah, Sean was the one who basically animated the first 3 episodes. He was also one of the animators for Godzilla Wrath of the Hybrid, and I think he was mostly the kaiju animator. So yeah. Sean did a pretty good job with his animations. They were pretty smoothly well done. Granted, there were some parts that were weird, I guess mostly in Godzilla Wrath of the Hybrid, but for Kenshin Chaos, his animation certainly made Kudajira a badass character. Of course, he had to left Kenshin Chaos due to some personal stuff, which is alright. And then, of course, as you already know, Kaiju was the one who animated episode 4, and of course, he turned that episode into a literal movie. Like a little cinematic movie. And now we have Ultraman Ultimo, the new animator for episode 5, 6, and 7, and the later episodes. And, well, how do I say this? His animation isn't terrible, but it isn't the best either. For the most part, his animations are rather wonky and laggy, and at the same time, the character kinda move in a slow manner, or even in a fast, unnatural manner, which is a bit weird to see. Again, the animation isn't terrible, but I will admit that it is a bit of a downgrade, especially when you consider what the animation used to look like in the previous episodes. Although, like I said, this one is mostly nitpicky. And at the same time, I can't really blame them, especially when they had few little choices when it comes to animators. In fact, they actually wanted Kaiju to animate the next episodes, but he had his own projects, and if he was going to do that, he needed to get paid. So yeah, budget was needed. And, well, thankfully the Kickstarter succeeded in getting a lot of money. And, yeah, they got Ultimo. Although, on an interesting fact, there were originally 2 animators, Ultimo and Asusa Productions, although he had to leave the project because he had an injured hand, I think, if I'm not wrong. Although, if I have to be honest, the first time Asusa Productions was announced to be one of the animators for Kenshin Chaos, I will admit I was not too excited. For mostly one reason. His 3D animations aren't the best, in my opinion. I mean, his stop-motion animations, they're great, But his 3D animations, they're really not that good in my opinion. With the only exception being Legendary Godzilla vs. Shin Godzilla, that video that he did. That's the only 3D animation that to me is top tier good. And yeah, that's one of my criticism, although it's mostly nitpick. The next one, however, is something that I will never understand. As you already know, Kenshin Chaos is nothing more than a fun little series showcasing an awesome kaiju fighting against these other kaijus. Well, as it turns out, not everyone seems to be in the same page with that opinion. So, as it turns out, a lot of people didn't seem to like how Kudajira was defeating all of these characters. And I don't get it at all. Like, these people will go out of their way to try to debunk the episodes, trying to say like the characters in those episodes were like misrepresented and inaccurate and that their powers should be enough to defeat Kudajira. Like, what? I feel like one of the key points that these people are now realizing is the fact that this series is about Kudajira. Not about Godzilla, Ultraman, Gamera. No, it's not about them. This is a series about Kudajira. He's the protagonist of this series, and we follow him throughout the entire story, not the other way around. Honestly, I will never understand why this is such a big deal. Like, at all. Like, why complain about someone's character defeating, like, these official characters? Like, it's not damaging at all. This is just fiction. Like, why? I don't get why it's such a big deal. Although, I feel like the only time this would be a big deal is if it's only OCs. Like, let's just say the series itself doesn't have any official characters from, like, any already existing source material. Let's just say that it's all nothing but OCs by, like, other people. Now we have a problem, because if the one doing the series is like saying that, oh, my character is stronger than your guy's character, now we're gonna have a problem, because that means that no one is like going to agree with who is powerful, and there's gonna be like a huge argument about it. But here it's not the case. It's just one OC against these official characters. So it shouldn't be a big deal. Then again, I don't know if I should be surprised. After all, fanboys don't really like it when their favorite character loses, and they always have to find an excuse so that they win. The perfect example is obviously the Kong fans being salty over the fact that Kong lost to Godzilla. Even though, let's be honest, Kong was never really going to win. Even with that axe, he never really stood a chance against Godzilla. And that being the fact that Godzilla has more experience than Kong. Another example that I can give is this piece of art done by Manu No Heart, showcasing two OCs against Yang Zhanlong and Blake Belladonna from the show Ruby. This piece of art alone was enough to piss off a huge majority of the Bumblebee fandom, because they did not like the fact that Yang and Blake were losing, and their excuse as to why they should have won is because they beat Adam Torres, who at this point of Volume 6 became the leader of the Wine Fang. That's not a good enough excuse. I mean, just because you beat the leader of an organization doesn't mean that you're gonna struggle against their henchmen or whatever those characters were. Whatever, like, those characters, like, those OCs were. And at the same time, this is a 2v2, not a 2v1. But yeah, at this point I made it clear what my point was. It's pointless to just complain or even be, like, angry over the fact that your favorite character is losing. Just enjoy the whatever it is. Like, enjoy the video, the art, whatever you're watching, just enjoy it. Don't complain it because your favorite character is dying, because honestly, it's not really worth it. Now granted, perhaps the problem is mostly the fact that Kudajira is overpowered, and I can understand that. I mean, myself, I hate overpowered characters. I think they're the worst type of, characters. But I think what really saves Kudajira from being like this, all overpowered character, is the fact that he actually has a personality, and how he is portrayed. And here, we move on to my next issue. The portrayal of Kudajira. Now, funnily enough, and I think in terms of script writing, Chris and Nico never really had any idea of what Kudajira's personality would be like. Like they never really had this in mind. Although even with not thinking of a personality for the character, that really did not stop the animators from actually portraying Kudajira in a very specific way. And I will say this, Sean and Mefalo really portrayed Kudajira in the best way possible. In terms of Sean, Kudajira is more of a stone cold killer. As in he goes through all of these different universes in search of victims to slaughter and kill for his pure satisfaction. The way he moves, especially in episode 2, really showcases the murderer that he is. In fact, calling him the God of Death is definitely a fitting title. With Mefalo Kaiju, he was more of a raging beast, but you can definitely see the desire to kill no matter what. And Ultimo's Kudajira... oh boy. So Chris and Nico, if you're watching this video, I'm sorry if I used those words. I'm so sorry if I used those words. I just couldn't find any other words. But in terms of what I think of this new Kudajira, he is so incompetent and he is so dumb. Like the killer that he was in the first 4 episodes, completely gone. Now he is nothing more but a dunce. In episode 5, he did absolutely nothing. Like, he barely got any shots on Ultraman, and Ultraman was just kicking his ass. And yeah, granted, in episode 6, he actually did get some shots at Gamera, but in episode 7, when Kong was about to stab him with his axe, why did he do the Ultraman thing? Why did he try to replicate Ultraman Spacium being? Why? Why would he think that would work? That is so out of character. Like, literally, he's not a killer. The killer that he was is completely gone. Now we have this giant dummy who doesn't seem quite to know what he's doing. Like, why would he try to replicate Ultraman Spacium being when it's clear that when it's obvious that it's not going to work on him because he doesn't have that type of power? If anything, what he would have done is fire his laser beams at Kong, and Kong could have most likely blocked it with the axe. Granted, it's unknown if Kong's axe can absorb other energies aside from Godzilla's atomic breath, but considering that in a crossover event that Godzilla vs. Kong had with, I am not sure what the game is, but we're showing you the clip right now. In this clip that we're showing you of this crossover, Mechagodzilla tries to kill some characters in a helicopter, I think, and Kong literally blocks his proton scream with the axe, and the axe is not broken at all. Like it still works. Granted, you could say it's not official. It's not like an official thing, but considering that Kong literally gets electricity power in the same episode, yeah, I feel like his axe could have been able to block Kudajira's laser. So really, this kinda comes off as an excuse for Kong to get the first strike, even though there were other ways for Kong to actually hit Kudajira. Like, instead of blocking the laser with his axe, if it's not a thing, he could have simply dodged it. I mean, Kong is a pretty fast and agile character. I mean, for crying out loud, he dodged the atomic breath of Godzilla in their own Kong fight. And yeah, he got hit once, but even then, he still dodged it. And even used the... I think, yeah, he even used the part of the building to block it. So really, Kudajira doing the Ultraman, trying to like replicate Ultraman's Spacian beam was really not needed. It felt so out of character, and made Kudajira kind of a dummy. One thing that I really did not like are the eyes. Like, Kudajira's eyes literally going big whenever he gets, he receives damage. In the Ultraman episode, they were here, and they look so weird on him. Like, it looks weird, it looks cheesy, it looks so out of place. It looks really, really weird. Honestly, I really don't like it. I really don't like how his eyes just go big like that. Now, interestingly enough, Ultraman Ultimo actually posted a comment in my reaction of episode 5, and he told me that the Ultraman universe is actually a bit more light-hearted than any Toho movie. And for the most part, I understand that, but at the same time, I really don't agree. Well, yes, it is true that the Ultraman series has some bits of cheesy moments. That really didn't stop the franchise from being serious and even downright dark. I mean, heck, I remember watching Ultra 7 as a kid, and the first thing I remember seeing is this. Oh, and let's not forget this infamous scene from Ultraman Ace. Oh, and there's also episode 35 of the original Ultraman, Monster Graveyard, which has a pretty sad and deep story. Also, the entries of the Eisei Ultraman series are pretty serious in terms of their story. Heck, in the movie Ultraman Tiga Final Odyssey, there's this scene. Now, for context, this didn't actually happen. This was just a bad dream that the main protagonist was having. The child and the mother are still very much alive. But the point still remains. The fact that this movie actually showcases a child trying to wake her mother's dead body, and when the Ultraman tries to like help her and gets irritated by the screams, he proceeds to kill her. This actually showcases children's death. And again, this was only a bad dream, and fortunately it doesn't happen. And fortunately enough, I don't think there's there's no other visions or bad imaginations of this type of stuff. But the fact that they actually showcase this, Jesus. I suppose for a last example, I could also mention this. There is also Ultraman Nexus, although I never really watched that series, so I can't really say much. Although I have heard a lot of people say that this entry is actually the darkest and the most realistic out of all of them. So yeah, Ultraman, despite being cheesy, can take itself seriously and even dark. Now, you must be wondering, what exactly is my complaint in all of this? What is my issue? What is my disappointment in all of this? Well, the answer is actually easy. And once again, all of this is just my criticism, my opinion. You do not have to agree with it. But basically, my biggest disappointment in all of this is simply the change that was done to Kudajira. In the first 4 episodes, Kudajira was nothing more than a complete badass. The moment he shows up, you can already tell that something amazing, cool, and unexpected is going to happen. In these 3 new episodes, Kudajira is no longer a badass. Like, I don't think I remember a moment in these episodes that Kudajira has ever done something cool, with the only exception being episode 6, when he used the telekinesis on Gamera. That was cool. But other than that, there really isn't anything badass that he has ever done. In episode 5, he did absolutely nothing. He had no chances apparently, while Ultraman was just kicking his ass, and his eyes going big every time he takes a damage, which looks so weird on him. Oh, and I almost forgot, I just realized, how could I forget this? How the episode ends. Kudajira trips on a truck, and he falls on a portal.
I beg your pardon?
Let me repeat that. Kudajira trips on a truck and he falls on the portal. Oh, that was so bad. In episode 6, he was alright for the most part. He felt like that badass in the last 4 episodes. Although with the added addition that he has apparently a weakness, because apparently lightning doesn't work on water. It's like electricity does not work on water. Which for a weakness, I mean, I think it's strange that Kudajira does not know that, but other than that, it's not really that big of a weakness, considering that A, he can breathe underwater, and B, he's a surprisingly good swimmer. Episode 7, however, this is where Kudajira no longer becomes an intelligent killer. Like, literally, oh my god, him doing the Ultraman, trying to replicate Ultraman's Spacium beam. And also another detail that I also forgot to mention is after he gets punched by Kong with his new electric power, and he lands on like the jungle, there's a scene of him thinking. Yes, he thinks. He literally thinks, tries to like figure out a way to defeat him. I really don't know what to say. Oh, I almost forgot to mention this. I think I'm gonna mention that. So, this is my opinion, but the depths, like the way Kudajira kills his opponents in the new episodes, they're not really that cool. They're not really that impressive in my opinion. Like, here's the thing. In the last 4 episodes, the way Kudajira killed, it was brutal. Like, definitely. And I think that really showcases the murderer that he is. Like, the sheer brutality that he can do to someone. Like, just imagine you're a kaiju. You try to fight him off, but you fail. And he's right here trying to he's right here literally thinking how he's going to end your life. And when he does that, it's definitely going to be the most brutal way possible. So yeah, the way he kills in those last episodes really showcase the brutality that he has. Although in the new episodes, they're pretty bland. Like, Ultraman's death, it's just a reference just for the sake of being a reference. That's it. It's literally the Zeton fight. Nothing else. And what's a bit disappointing in my opinion is the fact that in the original script would have been Kudajira breaking the color timer. And honestly, that's a way cooler death than just doing a reference, than just doing the Zeton reference. That would have shown that Kudajira is a brutal killing machine. But nope, instead we went with that. Now I'm probably gonna have someone telling me that breaking an Ultraman's color timer is impossible. I'm just gonna show them this. Enough said. As for Gamera, I mean, it's kind of a cool death, but other than that, it's pretty simple. I mean, I get it. Having Kudajira dodge the plasma beam and then fire his laser beam at Gamera's heart so that he would explode. Yeah, a pretty intelligent move. Although, I do think it's weird that despite him doing that showcases his intelligence, apparently in the Kong episode, he wasn't smart enough to do something when Kong launched at him, but whatever. But other than that, even with that death is kinda simple. And with Kong, honestly, it's I mean, it's funny, I guess, but other than that, it's just, I mean, I felt that's what this death kind of feels like it. It's just funny. That's it. It's just like for the irony. And I guess, I don't know. I think it's, I don't know, it's just pretty simple, I guess. I guess one last thing that I can mention is, if I have to be honest, and again, this is just my opinion, I think the Ultraman episode was inaccurate. I highly doubt that Ultraman will be this strong to deal with Kudajira. This is the same guy who got his ass kicked by Tyrant in their first battle, and in the Ultraman X movie, despite doing kind of good against the Gorg Fire Golza got some pretty good hits on him. So really, I highly doubt that Ultraman will be this powerful and that much of a struggle for Kudajira, especially when Kudajira did a lot more in episode 4. You can definitely see, I don't want to assume things because I don't know, but honestly, it's not hard to see that there's a bit of favoritism with Ultraman. Especially considering the fact that Ultraman is quite literally the only one that receives no damage from Kudajira. Like, at all. Even though Kudajira does that electricity pulse when Ultraman was like on them, Ultraman did not flinch or even staggered. So honestly, I think this battle is so inaccurate. And one more thing as to how I see this new Kudajira with some examples, and ironically enough, some of these examples are from Ultraman. The way I see this new Kudajira, compared to these examples, is that he basically started out pretty cool, pretty powerful, and a total badass, but as we move on even further, they become a bit of a disappointment. And here are the examples that, to me, I feel that way. I present on Regal Sight, EX Red King, and even Tyrant. And what's even more ironic is that Tyrant was nerfed in his very first appearance. Like, literally, in the moment that he appears, like, for the very first time, he's like a total badass, but later on, when we arrive to the build-up, he is suddenly nerfed. So yeah, the way I see this new Kudajira is basically how I see these characters. They were all very powerful until they were nerfed. Look, I understand wanting to like nerf Kudajira a bit so that he would be at least on the same, so that the other characters would be at least on the same level. But honestly, I really don't like how it was done. But yeah, I think I've said too much of my criticism. So yeah, I want to point out that despite these criticism, I will still love Kenshin Chaos, no matter what. I will still watch it. I'm not going away. That's not how it works. I still love Kenshin Chaos no matter what. It's just that even though I'm a fan, that doesn't mean I'm gonna like everything, and that's how it is. So yeah. I also want to mention that no, I do not hate Ultraman. Like Godzilla, he's been part of my childhood and he's one of my favorite series. I will admit that nowadays Ultraman is kinda losing interest for me, especially with what's been done with him recently. More specifically, those not so good new generation series, and that god-awful Netflix anime. And yeah, there's a Shin Ultraman, although I still haven't watched it yet, so I can't say much. And also, no, I'm not one of those people. I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, Godzilla can beat Ultraman. No, I'm not one of those. I think they're annoying, and I certainly do not believe that. although I don't think that Ultraman is the most powerful being in the universe. As for my final thoughts for all of this, well, as you can most likely already tell, is that I am a bit disappointed. Honestly, these new episodes, kinda left my excitement a bit dry. Especially since I did not expect this type of, like, change and all that. Like, I understand, and I don't blame them. But, honestly, yeah, they're... Okay. Honestly, out of those three, I think I like the Gamera episode more, because it was at least entertaining to watch. It was at least cool. I will admit that in the Gamera episode, I underestimated Gamera because honestly, he has a pretty weak durability in my opinion. Well, technically, after watching the Ace trilogy, that is kind of a fact. But honestly, I think it was cool seeing Gamera basically use the advantage of, like, water so that he could take on Kudajira. However, with the Ultraman and Kong episode, yeah, I really did not enjoy it that much. Especially with the cheesiness and how Kudajira was portrayed. And it's honestly a bit disappointing to see an overpowered character like him turn into an underdog, if that's the right word to use. Now I'm probably the only one who honestly did not have a problem with Kudajira being so overpowered, because again, I think what really made him such a great character is how he was portrayed, and unfortunately that. Now again, even with those criticism, I'm still gonna love Kenshin Chaos. I still think that it's a very great series. It's just because I'm a fan doesn't mean that I'm going to like everything. So yeah, I'm the Godzilla Reader, and well, it's been nice. I think I'm gonna get the hell out of here before Kudajira comes and finds me, and probably wants to kill me. So yeah, bye!
Oh boy, what I think of Kudajira episode 5 to 7. Oh boy, I'm gonna get a lot of hate and criticism. I think this Kudajira is better than episode 1 to 4.
You what?
Before you all start booing at me, hear me out. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate Kudajira from episode 1 to 4. I actually like him. The only thing I don't like about that Kudajira is the fact that he doesn't really have much of a personality, besides the fact that he's overpowered as hell and likes to kill kaijus in brutal ways. That's about it, and doesn't show that many emotions. But this is a monster who has fun being evil just for the sake of being evil and can show emotions. I will agree, I saw seeing Kudajira shoot a lightning at Ultraman and just gives him a look is actually it's not. It does make me laugh and does come as a bit dumb for him to do, but I think that's kind of the point. And him doing the goofy eyes is, I will admit, a little bit dumb, and him tripping over his greatest enemy, a Trump. Besides that, he does show a lot of emotions. In episode 6, he shows some signs of intelligence, like he knows there's something wrong with his powers, so instead of just using it to shock enemies, he just uses it to fly, somehow. I don't know how. And it also shows that he has a smart side in this episode, but it also shows that he has anger. Well, I wouldn't say that that's one thing that they did keep from the previous. In episode 7, kind of loses some of the fun stuff that he had in the previous episode, like intelligence, fear from running away. But it's still a fun blast. But I will admit, him trying to do the Specium way is a bit dumb. Also, why does Kong Super Saiyan in this episode by absorbing Kudajira's electricity? And before you say it, oh no, it's just him absorbing the electricity. No, it's literally him It's literally Kong going Super Saiyan. Why? Why does he does this? It makes no sense for Kong to do this. Heck, even they use some dragon sound effects. Not once, but 3 times. And they even reference when Goku Frieza. Like, come on. How does this not look like he's going Super Saiyan? Like, come on. Also, this Kong is just having fun being evil just by showing these emotions. That's how. Because he just has fun being evil. He just loves being evil just for the sake of being evil. I love this Kudajira. And this is easy. Don't get me wrong, the other Kudajira from episodes 1 through 4 is still cool, but he doesn't show no emotion. But this is honestly the best take on Kudajira. I don't care what anybody says, but let's get to the part that I'm kind of split on the one part, and that's the animation. The animation, well, not bad. It's pretty good, but not perfect. It does kind of look wonky in some parts, but for the most part, it's alright. It's not as good as Sean, aka Quiff Craftable's animation, or Metho Kaiju Fan's animation, which is alright. But I can understand why the animation looks like this, because most of Ultima's animation looks best when he takes his time doing the animation. So that's probably why animation looks like this. Right. And also, there were originally going to be 2 animators. Remember that animator with the Suso Productions? And yeah, I'm kind of wondering what would that look like. That would have been interesting to see, because to be honest, his animations were okay, but I'm not sure how good they'll look for Kudajira. And the direction that I think this studio took was a pretty good direction. I think it's perfect. I don't think they nerfed this Kudajira in any way. Nah. He's still overpowered and so badass. And yeah, I will admit he's not as OP in the first 4 episodes, but doesn't mean he's really nerfed. He still defeats these enemies easily. He just picks up less of a fight. So it's not really that he's overpowered, it's that he's taking his time beating these enemies. But I don't mind this Kudajira at all.
Okay, so for my thoughts on Kenshin Chaos episodes 5 through 7, honestly, I'm kind of mixed on it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do actually really enjoy all 3 episodes, but at the same time, I feel like it's riddled with more problems than the first 4. Mainly episode 5 and 7 kind of are. Because in the case for episode 5, kind of like what Reader said, it did feel like it was in Ultraman's favor. Most of the episode pretty much seemed to be in his favor, which convinces me that if things went differently, Ultraman probably would have won. He probably would have just won the entire fight, but considering the fact that the series is mostly focused on Kudajira, he would have had to find some way to win, even though throughout most of the episode it was pretty clear he was not winning that. And not to mention, Ultraman, yeah, he's powerful, but against Kudajira, it doesn't really make too much sense here. So it kind of just feels like Kudajira just got nerfed just for the sake of Ultraman being able to land multiple hits on him, but I could be wrong, but that's just how it feels to me. For episode 6, I honestly think the fight between Kudajira and Gamera was actually pretty solid. For the most part, that fight actually felt pretty fair for both parties. Because when looking at it, in that episode, both fighters are basically having both their wits, their strengths, their powers, and their weaknesses all put to the ultimate test against one another. So we basically get to see how things would go if these two were actually to fight outside of something like this. And I'd say that was honestly pretty cool, especially since they also present a little more of Kudajira's intelligence here, compared to the previous episode in which he mostly just got beaten. And of course in the next episode where he thought he was able to use Ultraman's Spacium Beam. However, my argument for that is I believe Kudajira may have thought he had the abilities to replicate other fighters' powers, especially considering that in episode 5 he was able to use one of Zeton's abilities to fight against Ultraman and defeat him with that. And as far as we know, we don't even know if he's actually met Zeton and fought each other off screen. And we don't even fully know if this Kudajira is a hybrid like the original. All we really have to do right now for that is just speculate. But I do kind of wish they didn't dumb down Kudajira in that one moment, or at least, even though I find it to be kind of a funny moment, at the same time, it did feel like they kind of dumbed him down in that one moment just for the sake of Kong being able to get a hit on him. Which, that's okay, I guess, but still, it would have been better if he actually thought of something different rather than trying to replicate Ultraman's move. And then another thing. I also really like seeing Kong's golden form, but I do wish we actually got to see more of it, because it was barely on screen, but at least gave me a very, very nice scene where he just beats down Kudajira. Oh, and another thing about that, apparently it's not actually a Super Saiyan form, or at least it's not an actual reference to Dragon Ball. Apparently in the first video that I posted in part 1, someone at Kenshin Studios actually revealed that apparently this was actually a reference to the Toho version of Kong. More specifically about the fact that he's able to absorb electricity. It's just that the golden form was done as more of a visual gag. That's really what it was for. Oh, and if you're wondering about the Dragon Ball-esque sound effects that Akno was mentioning in his part, yeah, apparently that was an afterthought. Those were actually not meant to be there originally, or at least they were put there at the last minute, but not with that much thought. It was really just put there just because they thought it fits well with it, so yeah, that's kind of how it went. As for my thoughts on the animation, I do actually kind of like the animation, but at the same time, there are moments where it does feel just a little slow or just a little janky and laggy. Again, I don't hate it. I actually do really like it, and it kind of fits with the tonal change for the series, but at the same time, it does feel a little off. And considering the fact that after Methylo Kaiju left, where there were 2 animators, Ultima, which is the one we have, and then Asusa Productions was apparently also slated to join in for the series. I don't know how I would have felt about Asusa, because after looking into some of his videos, and even looking back on the return of Space Godzilla, yeah, I don't think he would have been the best choice. Unless it was something like his Shin Godzilla vs. Monsterverse Godzilla video. Yeah, I don't think he would have been the best choice for Kenshin Chaos. Unless he was to make it so that some episodes would be in stop motion, which probably would take a while to do, but at the same time, would actually be awesome to see. I would take that over the 3D animated one that he probably would do. Unless it's like his A-game for Shin Godzilla vs. Monsterverse Godzilla. I don't know what he was doing that day, but bro brought his A-game in and was cooking. But then a lot of his videos afterwards mostly kind of go back to a similar quality. Not too bad, not too slow, but still feels just a bit stiff. But that's how I mostly feel about it. Overall, I believe the direction that the studio has taken with the series is a decent one. However, I do feel it would have benefited more if it actually eased us into it a bit more subtly and naturally, rather than as fast as it went the moment episode 5 came out, but besides that, I think it's fine. I think it's alright, but I do have just some small gripes with it. But with that being said, this is Neos Gamer signing off. Hope to see you guys again on the next episode of Kenshin Chaos Breakdown. See ya!
EYX. Retrieve him.
Well, now that this is over, I can finally go back to do what I was doing at the very... Oh, wow. Okay. I don't know if I remember putting those here, but you know what? I think I'm just going to ignore them. Oh, look at that! My computer is right over here. Maybe there's something else I can do apart from just drawing. You know what? I'm going to play some games. And you know what I'm going to play? Or at least try to play? Godzilla Save the Earth Melee. Alright, I need to see how I can download this game and then try... What the hell? What's that noise? What the... What is that?
Excellent work. It's time to track down our next victim. Kudajira.